Jim Benash.
Here.
Jared Holter.
Here.
Jane Barak.
Present.
Paul Gleason.
Here.
Knut Timpty.
Present.
Craig Breitsprecher.
Present.
Stephen Knott.
Present.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
So move.
Motion made by Jim Benash,
Second.
seconded by Craig. To approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved. Public input. Anyone wishing to give public input, please step to the podium, state your name, address, and you are limited to 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to give public input? Second call. Anyone wishing to give public input? Third and final call. Anyone wishing to give public input? Is this not? Now it is. Third and final call. Anyone wishing to give public input? Okay, that portion is now closed. Consideration possible action on the following items. First, please take note. I am going to change the order of the agenda. We are going to go from 9 to 11 and then back to 10. Okay, public hearing. For consideration of a rezoning request filed by Lee Tushbarber of First Phoenix Lacrosse LLC, 13911 Ridgedale Drive, Suite 375, Minnetonka, Minnesota, 55305 on behalf of Doug Bakken Farm LLC, 618 14th Avenue North, Onalaska, Wisconsin, to rezone a parcel of the land from light industrial M1 with an I-90 economic overlay district to multifamily residential R4 to facilitate the construction of a senior living development located at North Kinney Cooley Road, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, tax parcel number 18-3625-3. Katie?
Thank you. The request tonight is to rezone a property from light industrial within I-90 Economic Overlay District to R4 to allow the construction of a senior living facility. The properties within 250 feet of those in question include a variety of retail and industrial businesses in the city of La Crosse and also single-family residences. The comprehensive plan describes this area for commercial, allowing a wide range of retail, service, lodging, and office uses. And then just north and south of this parcel are environmentally sensitive residential. This area is intended for lower density on compact lots, common open spaces that allows for the protection of environmentally friendly sensitive areas. As stated, this is to allow for the construction of a 48-bed, 36-unit memory care facility. The applicant intends to follow this application with a conditional use permit, which is required in the R4 district. As shown in your packet, there are 2 facilities, one which is currently under review, the use, and then they intend to follow the conditional use permit with a certified survey map to divide that property into 2 and have 1 senior living facility on each parcel. Prior to any construction activities, they would be required to obtain a site plan permit. They intend to do some development that would accommodate the unique environmental features that are located on that site. There's a stream and some sloped areas, so that's one of the reasons for the request. As the public hearing would be held, testimony should be considered before deciding on the rezoning application. City staff have put together 8 conditions of approval for this development.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please step to the podium.
Good evening. So my name is Lee Tushbarber. I'm the CEO of Renew. I just want to say we look very forward to joining your community. We've been conceiving of this project for at least 2 years now. We noticed that the region is a very economically vibrant area with the universities. And what's really noteworthy to us is the Mayo Hospital system that's at some point going to build their facility in the Onalaska area, thus creating a real nice medical hub, which will be a nice complement to what we're building. We've noticed that there's a major demand for senior housing of various types, including memory care. So we think it'll be a real nice project for the area.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing? Okay.
I'm Tom Madrovich. I'm the owner of Madrovich Architects in Wausau, Wisconsin. We've been engaged with the Touch Farbers for roughly 8 years in doing these types of projects. This is the latest of numerous projects. I believe you have some visuals.
Yes, we do.
The building we're planning is single story. It's designed in more of a resort feeling. We wanted to totally get away from anything that looked like a nursing home. So we have pitched roofs and cupolas and that sort of thing. You've seen it. The plan of the building is done with the rooms arranged in neighborhoods, which are smaller units, and those are arranged around 2 interior courtyards. The advantage of that is that the people who are the residents can be outside and they don't need direct supervision. As for the site plan, we've arranged it in a way that as somebody approaches it from the likely direction that most people will, they'll see the building, the first building, they'll come into the property, have an area to park and so on, and then in the future, when the second building, which will be an assisted living facility, is done a few years down the road likely, that'll provide a sort of an enclave for these buildings. The site plan you have is not quite up to date. We've made some changes due to certain requirements in an R4 district that I talked to Katie about in terms of setbacks from public right-of-ways and that sort of thing, which are there for firefighting purposes. So that stub road you see in your drawing is, that's not how it's going to end up being. It's going to be quite a bit longer. There's some very nice natural features on this site that the Renew intends to utilize in terms of maybe have some paths going down to the stream that's there. There are some other features that are going to be explored, one being geothermal and another is solar. But it's a very nice site. The actual building area is kind of a small part of it, but we intend to utilize that in the best way possible. Are there any questions on the architecture and the site plan?
We don't have any right now, but we may have
Okay.
after the public hearing. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? That portion is now closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? What is the wish of the commission? The public hearing is now closed. Okay, now what is the wish of the... Thank you for catching me on that. What is the wish of the commission?
I'll move to approve with 8 conditions.
Second.
Motion is made by Paul, seconded by Jim Banash to approve the rezoning request with the 8 stated conditions. Discussion. Jan?
Katie, I just had a question. On condition number 3, it says a Prawley annexation area. I'm not familiar with that.
There's a sanitary sewer fee for delineated area that was outlined as the Prawley annexation area. It's a pretty large area from a annexation years ago. There's a larger trunk sanitary sewer line that this fee goes to pay for.
Anyone else? Hearing, well, go ahead.
Quick question. Jared, there look to be some fairly significant slopes out there. You anticipate any problems with that?
As you look at your site plan tonight, you can see that this is just a preliminary mock-up of the site plan. The buildings do encroach on the sloped areas. That's something that would have to be worked out with the developers as we go along. We'd follow all of our current rules as far as retaining walls, setbacks to 30% slopes and things. I think it's doable with the way they can move the buildings around and what they have there. I think they can get things to fit. I guess the only other thing I'd point out is that is a City of La Crosse street, is Berlin Drive. I've talked to the City of La Crosse city engineer. We would be able to connect into that street. That actual right-of-way touches the City of Onalaska, the property limits of this site. It's our City of Onalaska water main that sits in that street, and the sewer conveyance would actually go into that, which then goes across Interstate 90 back into our system before it goes back to La Crosse again. So it'll go through a couple jurisdictions on its way down to the sewer treatment plant. It'll be a relatively tough site with the slopes, but there's a nice flat area that they'll be able to develop up there. I think when I've went into that area to look at, I think it'll be pretty neat if they do it correctly with the overlooks and the vistas and things.
And I know staff will be reviewing the site plan as it comes forward too.
Correct. Those issues will be taken care of as part of the site plan review process.
Thanks.
Paul?
My question's for the city attorney. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as commercial. So are we running into any issues if it's rezoned to residential use?
The comprehensive plan is to provide guidance to the Planning Commission and to the city administration and the city council. It's not a binding document such as zoning would be, and that is why when comprehensive planning comes in and it suggests a change in use, it's not a taking. So it is advisory, but it should be something the Planning Commission reviews when rezoning.
So there's no need to amend the comprehensive plan along with this?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. Item 5, public hearing for consideration of a conditional use permit application to allow the construction of a parking lot as a principal use located at 110 Irvin Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, submitted by Dave Scogan of Scogenheim LLC, 3800 Emerald Drive East, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, on behalf of the City of Onalaska, 415 Main Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, tax parcel number 18-28-0. Katie.
Thank you. The property in question is zoned neighborhood business, and conditional use permits are required to allow a parking lot as a principal use. This parking lot is property owned by the city. The proposed parking lot is owned by the City of Onalaska at 110 Irvin Street. The purpose of the request is dual focus as described in the letter provided by the applicant. The first, to offer additional parking to serve the Great River Landing, Great River Bicycle Trail, and for users of the proposed park, which is going to be installed in the southeastern block of the Main Street and State Road 35 intersection. The second purpose is to satisfy the parking requirements for a new building containing a restaurant to be located at 214 Main Street. The new building or restaurant will require parking be provided by the applicant at the site. However, the property owner has elected to construct a park with public access in that area and provide parking within 300 feet, which is required in the Unified Development Ordinance. To accommodate that request, the City of Onalaska is looking to enter into a development agreement, lease arrangement regarding the construction, maintenance, and other considerations for the parking lot on city-owned land and the proposed park, which would need approval by the Onalaska Common Council. As stated previously, the addition of this area with the parking lot will work towards solving a greater issue that the city has in the downtown area, which is a lack of parking. And allow for overflow parking for park users and also those visiting our downtown business district. It would also assist in the future redevelopment of city-owned parcels that are directly adjacent to where this parking lot would go. City staff reviewed compatibility. Properties within 250 feet are zoned public and semi-public and neighborhood businesses. Such businesses within the 500 feet include a winery, restaurants, the Great River Landing, a residence, and vacant land, in addition to the XL substation. We looked at consistency with a comprehensive plan. This area is downtown mixed use, which is supposed to be for pedestrian-focused development with a mix of uses for residential, personal service, commercial, institutional, with the goal of enhancing Onalaska's small central business district and waterfront. For services to the community, as stated previously, parking in our downtown area is a noted issue, and this has the potential to alleviate some of those concerns and bring additional visitors in to Onalaska's downtown. Lastly, for neighborhood protections, if the conditional use permit is issued tonight, the city would require site plan review prior to construction to ensure that neighborhood protections are met. As a public hearing would be held, we recommend public opinion should be listened to prior to deciding on the project. We've put together 8 conditions of approval for this development.
Okay, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Rise. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My wife Barb is with me, and John. I'm just going to field any questions, and I defer them to Jared or Katie if I can't answer them, but we're appreciative of this opportunity to have this conditional use permit, and we think it's imperative for the park, the landing, and the new restaurant that will be built and open perhaps as early as February. So are there any questions that I might be able to answer?
Why don't you have a seat, David, and we can call you up if we have any questions of that at that time after the public hearing. Second call, anyone wishing to give public input? Third and final call, anyone wishing to give public input. That portion is now closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? That portion is now closed. The public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the commission?
I'll move to approve with the 8 listed conditions.
I'll second.
Motion made by Paul, seconded by Craig to approve the conditional use permit with the 8 stated conditions. Discussion. Jim?
There's a couple things, Mr. Chairman. One would be if for some instance that for whatever reason this could not be constructed by October 1st, I think we should have perhaps some leeway in that for whatever reason. And secondly, when number 4, when it says owner, I'm assuming owner must mean the city of Onalaska.
Council, will you take a look at that? Or Katie? You don't have a copy?
That should state applicant, not owner.
Applicant, not owner?
Applicant, not owner.
Okay.
Number 4. Yep.
Is that the only correction?
The October 1st, 2017, that would be, whether that's possible, you could, I assume if there's an issue, they will address it to the city, and then the Plan Commission can take that up in September if it looks like it's not going to get done.
Okay. And the owner, the piece that says owner should be applicant?
Correct.
Okay. Pardon me? Okay. Craig?
Dave, I've got to ask you, why Skogenheim instead of Skogan? Why Skogenheim instead of Skogan? Yeah, just a point of interest.
The property that we vacated was our birthplace on 237. And so we formed a corporation when we're trying to repurpose that building. And so we just named it, our Heim stands for home, Skogan Home.
Thank you.
Great mystery is solved. Thank you.
Chairman?
Jim?
Just so that we can make this clear, the applicant intends to construct the parking lot. And also, on my understanding, that in construction of that parking lot, the applicant would also require several spaces to be used for their potential restaurant there on 2nd Street. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep, okay. So, Katie, we will make sure that that piece is taken care of. Any question, Jan?
I've got 2. Just responsible for like snow plowing this parking lot, is that the city or the applicant? I just wondered.
The city.
The city. And secondly, will there be signage directing people to walk up to the light at Main Street to cross? I'm just concerned about people trying to cross 4 lanes of roadway safety-wise.
I guess we did not have any specific signage planned. Obviously, hopefully most pedestrians would find that the signalized intersection would offer the safest crossing of the highway. We do have the timing at that intersection times so the pedestrians can get halfway across the road before the left turns, so it stays red for 7 seconds before it actually turns the left turn arrow down there. But it may be something at some point where we might put in a rapid flashing beacon sign at Irvin Street, possibly, where you can push the button. But the best place to cross is still going to be at the signalized intersection. That's just the safest spot that you're going to have.
Anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved. Thank you. Item 6, public hearing, consideration of an amendment to general implementation plan of the Traditional Neighborhood Development TND filed by Adam Aspenson, Traditional Trades, 1641 Sand Lake Road, Onalaska, Wisconsin 54650, who is requesting an amendment to the general implementation plan of the Traditional Neighborhood Development TND to merge Area A with Area B to facilitate one structure occupying Area A and Area B, including altering building height within the existing Area B for the property located at 1171 Rolling Oaks Drive, Onalaska, Wisconsin 54650, tax parcel number 18-5822-2. Katie?
Thank you. The property in question is zoned single-family and/or duplex residential and traditional neighborhood development overlay. Those properties within 250 feet include a variety of residential dwellings, single-family residences, twin-doors, and a multifamily apartment, and also agricultural land. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as a mixed-use district smart growth area, allowing complementary land uses including housing, primarily multifamily, retail, offices, and other commercial uses. The property in question is part of a traditional neighborhood development general implementation plan that was approved by the Common Council in 2008. The subject parcel was originally identified as Area A with very specific guidelines, including but not limited to doing a 2-story building height, and it had the same permitted uses as Area B, allowing both multifamily and commercial uses on that property. The applicant's request tonight is to allow extending the existing Sand Lake Road luxury apartment structure to the south, merging areas A and B together, utilizing both multifamily and commercial on the subject property. Presently, the applicant could build a standalone structure and the existing 3-story apartment building on Area B and a 2-story apartment or 2-story building on Area A. And they could combine the uses however they saw fit with either all residential, all commercial, or a mixture of the two. So this request is to combine the buildings into one continuous 3-story building where the 2-story building was previously allowed, and it would drop a story from 3 stories down to 2. At the corner of Rolling Oaks Drive and Sand Lake Road. This action would be accomplished by merging those areas together and developing the remaining parcels with the restrictions of Area B, which are listed in your packet for permitted uses, which are residential and commercial. There's no conditional uses. The building height would now be 3 instead of the 2 stories, particular setbacks for both the buildings and the parking. So staff considered the proposed changes using a single continuous one single building and the allowance of the building height to vary to be a substantial change from what was originally approved in 2008. That requires a public hearing and neighbor notification. So prior to construction activities, they have to provide a final implementation plan for this for review and approval by the Plan Commission and the Common Council, in addition to site plan review by city staff. There will be a public hearing. Testimony from the public should be listened to prior to making a decision. City staff have put together 6 conditions of approval for this development project.
Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing at this time. Anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Adam Aspenson, 1641 Sand Lake Road. I am in favor of it. I'd just like to field any questions if the council has any questions or concerns. So
why don't you just sit there until we're done, Adam, in case somebody has questions. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
James Shue, JKS Holdings. I own the parcel across from Mr. Aspeson's development, and I am in favor of it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think overall a second lot there in a commercial development will add traffic and traffic congestion to the area. So a residential apartment, in my opinion, would actually mean less traffic. Secondly, that leaves my little parcel for commercial development, which I'm obviously in favor of, doing something community-orientated, neighborhood-orientated, where I don't have to worry about competing with a much bigger developer. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? That portion is now closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
My name's Sam Schmidt, and I live at 1602 Pine Ridge. And I'm not in opposition of it, but I got some questions that maybe Adam can answer for us. Number one is the traffic that's going to potentially go out on Rolling Oaks. The headlights that could affect Ruth Holte, Marion Thompson, and also what will happen with the runoff with the rain. Where's it going to go? If it's going to go down Rolling Oaks, that's a potential problem, because on the corner of Rolling Oaks and Pine Ridge right now, heavy rain, water sits there. So that could be an issue in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon me? Your name one more time? Sam Schmidt.
My name is Marion Thompson. I live at 1610 Pine Ridge Drive here in Onalaska. The back boundary of my land is adjacent to the land that is in the notice for this hearing. I just want to give a little background. In October of 2003, I met with Dennis Aspenson of Traditional Trades at this site concerning the possibility of having a home built. At that time, Rolling Oaks had recently been extended, just recently, to Sand Lake Road, and Pine Ridge Drive had been constructed for a distance of perhaps 400 feet to the north. There were no homes currently in the area. Construction would be started soon on the east side of Pine Ridge Drive. In selecting a lot on what is now the second building from the corner of Pine Ridge, with that in mind, I asked a number of questions about what might be constructed on the lot behind my house, the corner of Sand Lake Road and Rolling Oaks. I was told specifically it could not be a gas station, and two, it would likely be something like a one-story office building similar to others in that area. This information has been reaffirmed periodically to me as the development has grown. I've been to these meetings before. As the condo structure along Sand Lake Road has been developed more recently, the plans have always shown access to this structure would be off Sand Lake Road at the north and south ends of the building that is already completed and the extension that is now in progress of being completed. I was told they wouldn't be able to extend it out to Rolling Oaks. And now, in answer to my question about the structure possibly connecting to the corner property, I was told that it's not going to happen back then, and now they're asking for that to happen. Suddenly, they want this building with approximately 75 condos and all the associated traffic with no access out onto Sand Lake Road to be able to drive by the back of my property out to Rolling Oaks Drive. In effect, making that more like a street than a driveway. Anyway, there will be a berm, I've been told. I have a couple questions about that possibility. What will be the elevation at the base of the land on the east side of this berm? The last berm that I was assured would be built is a rise from my house, and then they raise the level of the land on the corner so that it's the same height as the top of the berm. So much for that. What I'd like to know is what will be the elevation at the base of the land on the Sand Lake Road side of the berm, and as it extends down to Rolling Oaks, and how much will the level of the corner lot be raised? I'm sure it's been raised before and probably raise it some more. This is a major change to what I had been promised when I bought this, signed up for this land and had my home built. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Public hearing is now closed. What is the wish of the commission?
For the sake of getting discussion going, I'll make a motion that we approve this with the 6 conditions.
Second.
Motion made by Craig, second by Jim Benach to approve the TND with the 6 conditions. Okay, questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Jared.
I just wanted to address some of the concerns that I heard when I was just listening here. A couple of things that came up. One of the first ones was stormwater. There is a catch basin that has a knockout on along Rolling Oaks Drive that will be stubbed into a ponding area that was sized for the corner for a 5-year rain event. The pond downstream that drains this whole development was sized for a 100-year storm event. So this area, part of the original second addition to the Meyer Farm, was taken into account. The original area where the old Meyer farmhouse was, where the office area in the current building was not taken into account as part of that development. That actually drains cross lot down to Pine Ridge Drive and then out that way. But stormwater for this area, I think, is sized for an adequate event that we would expect in our subdivision code. Traffic for the site, as was stated, there was as part of the Sand Lake Road project that was performed in 2011, there was a driveway access to Sand Lake Road that is currently out there today. Actually, the driveway apron is in that location. But if you look at that, that's a right in, right out. So it was only be able to come right in, coming from the Holman direction, and then if you wanted to leave, you'd leave going toward the US Highway 53 interchange. The proposed site plan that the developer submitted with their final implementation plan does show the driveway going around the building, removing that curb cut that was along Sand Lake Road, so there would not be any access to that that curb cut, but coming out to the intersection of Rolling Oaks Drive and Streblo Street. So it would come out to Streblo Street. Just judging by the way the traffic patterns are in this area, most of this traffic's going to make in my estimation, is going to go out to Sand Lake Road. That's the best, most quickest way to get to the road network of getting to US Highway 53 or Sand Lake Road. There will be some traffic that will travel through the neighborhood, Rolling Oaks Drive, possibly north. But I think Sand Lake Road is such a connected road that a lot of the traffic is going to go out that way. Will there be more traffic at the intersection of Rolling Oaks and Sand Lake Road? Yes, there will be more traffic at that intersection, but the same cars would have went through the intersection either way with the driveway that was proposed. I think when the driveway that was proposed, if this building was on Area A was built separately, the driveway would have accessed at Streblo Street, so that traffic would have come out at that location. That was the plan originally. As far as headlights and the berm, we don't have the exact elevations yet. That is something that we will check during the site plan process. They have in their site plan that they have submitted at this point do show the berm getting extended down, not quite all the way to Rolling Oaks Drive. They're planning on having a ponding area at the north or southwest corner of the property along Rolling Oaks Drive. They do in their landscape plan do show arborvitaes and blue spruce being planted along there. I think that's something that as staff during the site plan review will have to be cognizant of. I think it would even be beneficial to have a fence along that area. Would be just as a fail-safe in case there's a piece of the landscaping that the lights can get through. So that will have to be addressed during the site plan process. Don't have those exact elevations, so I can't really give you a good answer as far as the berm right now. Those are the major concerns I think I heard during the public input. With that, I'd open it up for questions.
Mayor had to step out briefly, so any other questions? Skip?
Just clarification here. All we're doing here is approving the combination of the two lots. We're not approving any site or any layout or anything like that at this time. Is that correct?
There's two things that you're actually reviewing tonight as part of what staff felt was the alteration of the original general development plan. That's the combination of the two lots. So the was showing two buildings separated, but now it'd be one combined building with no separation between them. And the fact that now the combined building coming down is 3 stories at the lot line, to the lot line, and then the 2-story portion is at the end of the building. So it's a combination of those two things.
But technically, all we're doing is approving the combination of the two lots, not all these other things we've been talking about. Is that correct?
No, the building height is the other aspect of it. The original general development plan had said that that parcel would have a certain building height of only 2 stories, and that the one north of it would be 3 stories. So amending this plan is to allow the buildings to go together and also to allow that building height differentiation. Otherwise, there would have been a setback required from the property line. So it would have been a much starker difference between the 3-story and the 2-story.
But our motion isn't including any of that. That's all part that comes on later on when you do site approval and things like that. Right now, the way I read the motion, the item that that we're voting on is just changing from 2 lots to 1 lot.
And it also states the second, to facilitate one structure, including altering building height. So that's where we're talking about the second part. So it's going to one structure and also the building height differentiation.
Okay. But I mean, we're not talking about all these other things you've been talking about. That's what I'm getting at. You're talking about what's going to happen in the future. If we approve this, then these things can happen. But we're not approving those things happening.
In reference to stormwater and landscaping and headlights, is that what you're referring to?
Pardon?
She wants to know what other things you're referring to.
Well, we're talking about the layout, where the exits are, all this sort of thing. To me, that's superfluous for what our motion is. I mean, yes, it's nice to know these things, but I don't think that's part of the motion.
Paul?
Am I correct that, well, as it stands now, Area A is required to be a 2-story building, Area B can be a 3, correct? The combined building is going to step down from 3 to 2 at what is the current property line between A and B? So we're really maintaining the building height requirement that was already in effect.
For A.
Yeah, Area A, what is now Area A will still have a 2-story building. It will be connected to a 3-story building, and that's the difference?
It may extend a bit into Area A.
Okay.
Over the property line. We don't have the exact delineation on this showing where that property line was, but it does look as though it'll extend to a degree into Area.
Okay.
Partially.
And if I may, there would have been a setback if it was 2 separate buildings where the 3-story would have ended, and then setback for the 2-story building. Being one building, then, as Katie was saying, the 3-story may go all the way into Area A.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Jared, did you have something? No. Oh, okay. Jan?
So the building that is there existing is the 3-story building, which is on Area B. The addition that's on there, that's at studs and the outside wrap, is that on Area B?
Yes.
That's on Area A?
The building that's currently being constructed currently is a second piece of the building that was approved by the FIP as part of Area A.
That's on
Area B. I'm getting my A's and B's mixed up now.
I was confused before. All the existing building and the building under construction are both on Area B.
Correct.
Okay. Then it'll step down at approximately the lot line to 2 stories. I'm assuming that the building under construction is going to be 3 stories?
Please, Adam, would you identify yourself?
Adam Aspenson, 1641 Sand Lake Road. The building under construction, as you see today, will be 3 stories.
Right.
We're looking to extend the 3 stories
onto Area A.
Here today, onto the parcel to the south. And then it'll step down to 2 stories where the retail would be.
Okay. And then how long from the northern part of that building to the southern, how long will that building be in totality?
Jared, do you have that or not? Total project is going to be right around 800 feet from one end to the other.
I guess it's in that neighborhood. Part of what might help too is item number in your packet tonight. There's also for consideration item 9 that has the final implementation plan.
Right.
There's actually renderings of what the building would look like. So that, I know it's not really truly part of this item, but it gives you reference and character of what you're looking at.
But the 2-story part there on the end looks pretty small compared to 800 feet in length.
Well, I think the first 550 feet of it is an area, the northern area already. So.
Gotcha.
Jim?
Well, since I'm the alderman for that first district, there are concerns about traffic and with that size of building, but however, this has already been approved. This has already been approved as a commercial area. And these plans have already been approved. So these buildings are going to come into fruition. The questions we had at subcommittee, some of them were answered at that level. But Mrs. Thompson makes a very good case about traffic. And secondly, people will complain about if people are coming in late at night and their headlights are shining into your neighbor's window. I think that needs to be addressed on a big issue. And the idea that the single-family houses were there first, I think we do need to pay attention to that. And this particular these particular buildings are very welcomed in the city, but I think there is an obligation to the single-family residents in the area. And if we can address those issues to make that comfortable for those single-family housing, I think that should be taken care of. Secondly, we did talk about the ingress and egress from this particular location so that we don't have a lot of problems with traffic, and I think we addressed that too. And we will address that again with the site plan. The other question had to do with how far are they going to be? Is that going to obstruct the view from traffic going on to Sand Lake Road? And my understanding is it will not. So the issues again would be traffic. As we know, Holman is going to be building a number of residential homes in that particular area. Sand Lake is going to become exceptionally busy. Mayo, when it comes out there, Riders Club is probably going to be another main thoroughfare. And since this has already been an ongoing issue, I mean, it's just, at the present time, it would be my opinion if we can just make sure that our single-family residents are taken care of as the concerns they mentioned, headlights and traffic and things like that in the area.
Okay, anyone else? Questions, comments? Skip?
Yeah, I have some heartburn over the way this is worded and what all the discussion is. I don't think that the way it is worded, we're just approving combining two lots. We're not approving anything else. And facilitate does not mean approve. Facilitate means, well, this can happen, but there's a whole nother procedure on approving or not approving these things. So I think that really, if you want all these other things in, the whole wording of this item should be changed, not the way it is. But the way I see it right now, all we're doing is approving the changing of two lots to one lot. That's the way I read this motion. And I don't think that all these other things really are part of this motion. These other things are very important, yes. But I think the way the motion is written, we're only talking about approving or not approving the combination of two lots.
I may address that. That's something, the similar issue that we had at subcommittee was at the time we were addressing changing it from two separate lots to one lot, and that's the bulk of what we talked about. And then, of course, the rest of it, I think we're going to address at number 9, if I'm not mistaken. So, or part of it anyway. So that was my understanding at the time in the subcommittee, that we were just approving, yes, we can go ahead, make this one particular structure, and then the other issues would be a separate issue.
My understanding is it's both the combining of the lots as well as the combining of two buildings into one building. So it looks to me like there's two issues on here.
Craig?
Just a quick comment related to Jim's addressing the traffic situation. I agree 100%. I think we need to be really cognizant of the needs of the single-family dwellings when we do our site plan review on this particular development. I think we have to be very, very careful about that. And traffic is going to continue to be a challenge for us. I mean, the terrain alone in this area, and it's not just us, really is going to continue to be a challenge in years ahead. So we're going to have to be really sensitive about residential neighborhoods and how to protect the integrity of those areas.
Paul?
I think by allowing Area A and Area B to be combined into one area, that carries with it the expectation that it can be one building. Doesn't need to be one building, but it can be. So, yeah, we are making that change if you want to call it a change, but it's an automatic when you combine areas, I believe.
Jan?
Just to follow up on something you said, Jim. If we don't approve this, then the 3-story building can be constructed on Area B, which is there, and a two-story building can be constructed on area A, just as it's already planned. And how many units would that delete? The side setbacks aren't that big.
Adam Aspenson, 1641 Sand Lake Road. Probably right around 12 units per floor, so.
That's right, it's three-story, okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay. Abstentions?
Yes.
One abstention, one nay. So let's see, what do we have here? 1, 2, 4, 5. Motion carries. Counsel, is there a question?
Could someone read the motion? Because of the nature of the discussion, I think we just voted on a motion, and I think if we polled the members, they would give different interpretations of what the motion was.
I believe the motion that was on the floor was to approve with the 6 conditions.
To approve, well, let me read it. For clarity's sake, let me read it. Amendment to the general implementation plan of the traditional neighborhood development TND filed by Adam Aspenson, Traditional Trades, 1641 Sand Lake Road, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, who is requesting an amendment to the general implementation plan of the traditional neighborhood development TND to merge Area A with Area B to facilitate one structure occupying Area A and Area B, including altering building height within the existing Area B for the property located at 1171 Rolling Oaks Drive, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, tax parcel number 18-5822-2. Now, counsel, why don't you tell us what that means?
Well, I think that the motion, if the motion was meant to be without the preface, it's the motion is to approve an amendment to the general implementation plan of the traditional neighborhood development to merge Area A, et cetera, to the end. You're approving an amendment, and that is the motion, so we're clear and we can not, so that I think that makes it more clear. Often when one reads minutes where there's just a motion to approve after a long discussion, the motion actually sometimes is very difficult to parse out years later. This would make the motion very simple if someone looks at this down the road.
Okay, is that for a point of order, is that what everybody understands this motion to be?
That was the nature of my motion. Exactly what you stated.
Okay. So that was, and that is what everybody voted on? Okay. Okay, so it passes 1, 4, 5, no. Did you vote? Why don't we do a roll call vote on that, just to make sure?
Mayor Joe Chilson?
Aye.
Jim Benash?
Aye.
Jared Holter?
Aye.
Jan Brock?
No.
Paul Gleason?
Abstain.
Knut Timpty?
Aye.
Craig Breitsprecher?
Aye.
Stephen Knott?
Nay.
So that's 5 in favor, 2 against, and 1 abstained.
Okay, so it passes. Okay, item 7. Public hearing, consideration of a substantial modification to the Old Country Buffet Planned Commercial Industrial District, PCID, at 9417 State Road 16, Onalaska, Wisconsin 54650, to allow the subdivision of the parcel into 2 parcels and the construction of 2 commercial structures, including a restaurant and retail, with parking modifications and site improvements, submitted by Colin Close of MBA Architects, Inc., 3823 Creekside Lane, Holman, Wisconsin 54636, on behalf of Windy Ridge C, LLC, 205 Fifth Avenue South, Suite 600, La Crosse, Wisconsin 54601, tax parcel number 18-3603-2. Katie.
Thank you. The public hearing tonight is to gain public feedback on the request to amend the planned commercial industrial district that is currently over the previous Old Country Buffet. They are looking to divide that parcel into 2 parcels, each containing either a restaurant or a retail building. The restaurant is proposed to be 5,308 square feet, and the retail building to be approximately 8,200 square feet. They're proposing 147 stalls, which would serve the overall development. The existing structure would be removed. City staff would complete site plan permit for each one of those structures. Attached is a conceptual site plan provided by the property owner. If this is approved, the applicant intends to come forward next month with a certified survey map performing that lot division. As a public hearing would be held, testimony should be listened to prior to making a decision. There are 7 stated conditions of approval tied to this development.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Colin Close, MBA Architects. It's actually pretty simple. It's just the reverse of what you just did. Instead of going 2 lots into 1, we're going 1 lot into 2. And basically right now that's all we're doing. Our tenants are market driven, so we don't know who's going to go into those spaces at this time, and we don't know what they're going to look like at this time, but we'll be coming in front of you a few more times before that happens. So if I can answer any questions other than that, that's be happy.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? That portion is now closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? That portion is now closed. The public hearing is closed. Katie? Or, excuse me, what is the wish of the commission?
Make a motion to approve the request to for the PCID development for 9417 State Road, Highway 16.
I'll second.
How many conditions?
Excuse me.
Are there any conditions on
All
that,
7
Katie?
conditions as
7?
stated by the request.
I'll
Okay.
still second.
Okay, motion made by Jim Banash, seconded by Steve. So used to calling you Colonel, I forgot your first name. Steve Knott. To approve. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Something I did bring up at the subcommittee was, I know this is market-driven, but and I know the tax is based on the type of facility that goes in there, but I would hope that the developer would already have an idea who may or may not be going into these units. As he stated, he's not sure if it's market-driven, but he also mentioned that there might be some more before the committees again to perhaps advise us who is or isn't going to be in these particular units. So that's the only thing. I wouldn't want us to move forward without really knowing what's going to be going in there. Would be helpful.
Craig?
My question is the purpose of dividing this parcel solely to expand the uses that are possible?
Is that a question of the
staff? Are both of the proposed uses allowed now?
Yes.
So what's the purpose of dividing the parcel?
That's up to the applicant. That potential, if there was a future sale, they could sell one of the restaurants or the retail at a later date instead of having two structures on a single parcel.
Because my understanding, it's under single ownership right now.
Any other questions? Jan? I can see you want to ask a question.
Well, what if in the future one owner came up and wanted to buy the entire Old Country Buffet building or site now? Would they have to come back and ask us to put it back together?
So the request tonight is to divide it because the intention is to remove the Old Country Bay structure in entirety, demolish it, and build two new structures. If they wanted to merge it all back in, they could do that, but they would need to get a conditional use permit to have two structures on a single parcel. They were offered that out front. We said you could either do a certified survey map to put one parcel on one structure, which would require division, or you could come back and get a conditional use permit to have two structures on a single parcel. So they chose to divide the lot instead of having two structures on one parcel.
Paul?
What we're voting on tonight is to amend the PCID to allow the subdivision of the parcel into two parcels. We are not subdividing it into two parcels. I suspect that if the developer finds one user who wants the whole parcel and wants to either use the current building or build a new building, it would be available to one user for one building. We're not precluding that with what we approved tonight. If they follow up with a certified survey map to divide it into two parcels, then if that was approved, we would be actually dividing it. I expect that might not happen until the developer has two users or at least one user and knows exactly where to put that dividing line, because depending on the user, this theoretical dashed line down the middle of the drawing could move one way or another or disappear. We're just giving him permission to divide it in the future if it proves appropriate.
Okay.
I agree with Paul.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 8.
Mayor?
Conditional use permit
This has been withdrawn by the applicant.
Pardon me?
Item 8 has been withdrawn by the applicant. They're no longer requesting a conditional use permit.
Oh, it's withdrawn. Okay. Okay, thank you. Item 9, review and consideration of a final implementation plan for the traditional neighborhood development TND filed by Adam Aspenson Traditional Trades, 1641 Sand Lake Road, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650 for the property located at 1171 Rolling Oaks Drive, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, tax parcel number 18-5822-2. Katie.
Thank you. So If the amendment to the traditional neighborhood development general implementation plan, which you had earlier this evening, is approved by the Common Council, the applicant is requesting consideration of the final implementation for this area, final implementation plan for tax parcel number 18-5822-2. The final implementation plan indicates a single structure that includes the existing Sand Lake Road luxury apartments containing 75 residential units and the extension of the structure, which is proposed to contain a mixture of residential and retail space. The building is proposed to be at 2 heights, both 3 stories and 2 stories as shown in the attached renderings. The purpose of the building height differentiation and the mix of uses is to accommodate the original intention of the TND. The applicant intends to construct 29 two-bedroom units and 7 one-bedroom units with approximately 4,700 square feet of retail space on the main floor. Further, they intend to extend the existing landscaped berm down south the property line for screening purposes for the residents located west of the proposed structure. Included is a letter from the applicant, the proposed site plan, landscaping plan, and architectural renderings. City staff have put together 9 conditions of approval for the final implementation plan.
Make a motion to approve the final implementation plans for traditional neighborhood development.
Okay, motion to approve final implementation plan for the TND.
To include all 9
with the 9 conditions.
Second.
Second by Craig. Motion made by Jim Benage, seconded by Craig. Discussion. Skip?
No, all that discussion that went on before for 6 applies to this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was getting at before. We were discussing things that didn't apply to that one. We should have always applied to this one. So I guess we don't have to discuss anymore.
Okay. You don't mind if I ask a question, though, do you? Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Abstentions?
Abstention.
1 abstention. Motion carries. Item 11. Discussion and consideration of an amendment to the Unified Developmental Code, UDC, regarding allowable amount of detached accessory structures in rear yards. Katie?
Thank you. The City of Onalaska over the last 20 years to date have issued a minimum of 1,267 detached accessory structure building permits, including garages, carports, decks, pools, pergolas, sheds, gazebos, and other similar structures. Historically, the purpose of the maximum 20% allotment in the rear yards of residential structures is to prevent large pole structures from being installed in residential areas, so not to detract from the residential character of a neighborhood. When considering an increase to allowing the maximum of a detached accessory structure, there's a variety of things to consider. For example, increasing the more structures you have increases the amount of impervious surface, which causes a decrease in water infiltration in green spaces in the front and the rear and the side yards. This reduction in infiltration can cause an increased demand on the city's stormwater system. From a fire safety perspective, as the distance between structures decrease with the more accessory structures, the necessary needed fire flow to fight a fire increases. City staff pulled 2 definitions related to detached accessory structures for a structure itself and what an accessory structure is. We also have highlights from section 13.6.7 for accessory uses or structures, summarizing that prior to the installation of an accessory structure, you need a building permit if it's greater than a 5 by 5 foot structure. Principal structure has to be present in order for an accessory structure to be installed. Up to 4 accessory structures are allowed per residential property. Detached accessory structures are allowed in the rear yard and potentially in the side yard if certain requirements are met. Detached accessory structures are allowed up to 15 feet in height, and the maximum allowable amount of a detached accessory structure in a rear yard is 20%. Legal counsel and city staff completed a review of nearby communities and/or communities of similar sizes to look at how they regulate the maximum allowable amount of detached structures in rear yards. Most communities have a twofold system where there's a maximum percentage, like the 20% that Onalaska has, but also a maximum overall square footage. And because of that, it typically limits the lesser of the two figures. We do not have a maximum square footage, rather just the flat 20% applied across a residential lot. Included in your packet are 3 maps showing different typical neighborhoods throughout the city. I tried to show a small, medium, and large size average block for residential properties. The rear yard is shown in green. The red boxes show what a 20% lot coverage in the rear yard would be, and the blue box would show 30%. The 30% was selected just for discussion purposes. All of the boxes for the smaller and mid-sized lots are 20 feet in width, with the length dependent upon the rear yard percentage. So even on a single lot, or on a single block, each lot, depending on where your house sits, is what more so determines how much rear yard you have. If your house is closer to the street or farther away from the street, that impacts how much rear yard that you would have available to you. The large lots are all 75 foot in width, again with the length dependent on that rear yard percentage. 20 feet did not fit on that particular, so just to clarify that note. We also have additional information on each one of those maps showing average lot size, average rear yard size, and what those 20%, 30% lot coverage amounts would look like in each block. Again, the purpose of doing these maps is to show you how our ordinance currently applies across the city of Onalaska residential properties. We also have a memo from Onalaska's legal counsel pertaining to the discussion of detached accessory structures on residential properties. The table below that looks at all of the different communities that we reviewed and what they require. Onalaska is one of the least restrictive in comparison to the bulk of the list that is before you tonight. Again, because they have not only a overall percentage, but a maximum cap of how many square feet each individual property can have. Action requested tonight is just for discussion purposes to see if any changes would be wanted to occur. If there was direction to have a public hearing, that would not be able to occur until August at the August Plan Commission meeting, as deadlines for July have passed.
Jim.
Well, I guess I'm responsible for bringing this forward, and we had someone come forward at Board of Zoning Appeals, wanted to have a shed in their yard, and because they didn't have 20%, because the ordinance read the way it did, it was denied based on the ordinance. My opinion is we could probably go throughout the city and find homes that don't meet this particular requirement and they have a shed or something in their yard. It's pretty hard to go everywhere and get everybody up to proper code, but in this particular instance, I thought what I was proposing, or I was thinking, was having something in the ordinance to the effect that a shed would be a prefabricated shed and portable. It would be no bigger than 8 by 10 by 15, and if somebody wanted to put it into their yard, it is not going to be a fire hazard. It would be a particular problem for rain. It wouldn't create any issues for their neighbor. I don't think somebody should be penalized because they can't afford a larger yard, and when they buy a place, it's a smaller yard, and they're not allowed to put in a shed. Again, I wanted to be very specific about how I would address this particular ordinance and what I would see or allow a resident to have in their yard. And I wanted to bring it forward to the commission to get their thoughts, and if it's something that, no, this doesn't appear to be reasonable, that's fine, but I thought it'd be a good idea to at least discuss it, because these are very popular. You can see them everywhere. You see them being sold at some of the places in town here. And I don't think this would be a real problem for the city, because I don't see a bunch of people running out to spend $500 to $1,000 to buy one. But again, I just wanted to bring this forward for discussion.
So would we be, if we were to pursue this in the future, we'd be looking at just adding on a minimum, so it would be like a 20% or 8 by 12 by 15, whichever is larger?
Well, I wanted to stay away, personally I wanted to stay away from the 20% issue. There is a concern that the issue I wouldn't want to see happen is somebody building their own. And then it gets away from the purpose. The purpose is to make it a shed for storage. If we have people building something out of wood or something else, we don't know what exactly it's going to look like. And we have to be concerned about our neighbors. If you look at something that's prefabricated, something that you can buy at a home improvement store, I mean, generally they're of good quality and what have you, and it would be portable. They could take it with them. I don't want to see a change to the particular ordinance the way it reads in regards to a percentage of the property. This would just be an addendum to the ordinance to allow somebody to put a structure like this on their property and not be in non-compliance with the ordinance.
Okay. I hate to play the devil's advocate here, but what happens if somebody... Okay. What happens if somebody puts a plastic shed up? That's portable.
I think that's mostly what they're made out of, prefabricated, is what I see.
Okay. But you would have a problem with somebody, I think Ron's a pretty handy guy, and I think he could build a pretty nice shed.
I agree.
You know, that I guess I think if we make it too narrow, we run ourselves into problems. But, I mean, now I couldn't build a shed to save my soul. I mean, you would have to come over, you wouldn't have to come over there and thing and fall over. But there are other people that are pretty handy that could build a pretty nice shed. And they need to get a building permit for that, and it's inspected. So,
I have a different view on this. If there are certain ordinances that are keeping people from doing things that the Plan Commission thinks they should be allowed to do, then I think that we need to go back and get rid of those restrictions that are there. But are those restrictions there for a purpose, and do they serve a purpose that we do want? And I think this is what needs to be looked at before we do any amendment to allow this or allow that type of thing. We need to look at the basic thing behind it to start with, and then see if that should be modified. And if it shouldn't be modified, then we leave things the way they are. That's my attitude.
No. Is he allowed to ask a question?
No, we're just having a discussion. I mean,
recognize
Alderman Bertram can't ask that. If you want to invite a question or comment, you can.
Okay. Jerry, do you have any questions? Please, do you have a comment or a question? Okay, come on up. And then Harvey, you come up, and Ron, you can come up too, and Bob also.
Need my name and address? Yes, sure. Jerry Every, I'm at 801 Troy Street in Onalaska, Wisconsin. Thank you, Mr. Panache, for bringing this forward. I appreciate that. This is a constituent of mine, and you're aware of how this problem arose.
Speaking to the mic, Jerry. There you go.
Yes. you're aware of how this arose, and in talking about, there was quite a bit of discussion at that time, and I know that an ordinance is an ordinance, and we need to support our staff, and they have done a beautiful job of getting this information together. However, the ordinance that we're talking about was written in 1969. In 1969, were you driving 2 cars? Probably not. You had a single garage. Now people are driving 2 cars, maybe even 3 cars. 2-car and 3-car garages are probably more common than anything. So times change. And I agree with Jim's comment about fiddling too much with the ordinance. Leave the 20%, but couldn't you increase the maximum allowed? And that would solve the problem. I don't think that's going to harm anybody. I truly believe that people should be allowed to do whatever they want with their own property, providing it's within the law and nobody complains. And there are no complaints in this case. Nobody complained. It's a beautiful lot, fine people, and I think that we should consider a change. Whatever you feel would be proper, I guarantee I'll go along with what you decide, but I would urge you to consider a change.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Harvey?
I got a whole bunch to say when they're done.
Okay. Please state your name.
Harvey Bertrand, 3334 Augusta Lane, Alaska. And I'm wondering, Katie, I guess anyone here, has this issue come up in the past? In other words, is this this ordinance has been in effect since, what was it, 18? Yeah. And anyway, I guess, is there something that needs to be fixed here, is my question. Like, do we, it seems as though we could go around the city and find issues that seem to me to be nuances, perhaps, and we could be here all night long making changes to ordinances. So I'm just wondering, are we fixing something that needs to be fixed?
Periodically, the inspection department in particular gets requests from property owners to put up sheds, pools, etc. It's not always just a shed, as stated. It can be a gazebo, it can be a pergola. All these different things constitute accessory structures. And the inspection department does a review of their rear yard and applies the 20% rule. If it is over the 20%, they're told that they cannot put it up, or they can remove structures that are there today to allow for the construction of whatever it is that they want to do, provided they don't break the 20%, or they're told that they can't. They're offered the ability to obtain a variance, which is what happened with this last case. The property owner came forward to attempt to get a variance, and it was not approved because they did not meet the statutory requirements of hardship. So that's the basis for the request.
Anyway, I guess I'll just make a statement that, that we just make sure that they're not creating an issue here or changing an ordinance just because of one.
Right, but I believe that's a question to be discussed at council. I think they have the whole council here. Ron, do you have anything to add? Get ready, Bob, because I'm going to ask you next.
Ron Jertson, 1222 County Highway PH. I kind of see that the variance issue, from what I understand, that variance, very few have ever been issued on that regard, so it's kind of a non-player. Back in 1969, when they put this together, things have changed immensely. The way people are gathering things and the way they need to store them. We've got people like the Stokes over there, where I think it's probably more the norm. People have gathered things their whole life, and they're trying to keep them on premises versus the expense of moving them or storing them. Downsizing is part of what they do, and it's almost like we're asking them to downsize and kind of infiltrate into the things that they need to save and go.
Okay.
I kind of see it the way Joe does. There's some things that we can do, maybe make it a prefab part of it. As far as water runoff and stuff, I don't think we really got that many issues with a small shed like that where that's ever going to be a problem, or even fire. We got if we go with a non-flammable type of thing, it's not going to be a problem. Okay. You know, and I'll probably reiterate what Jerry said. You know, these people have been pretty good people, keep their place up very nice, pay their taxes. You pay your taxes and you're not getting guff from your neighbors, we should let them do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bob, do you have?
Bob Muth, 317 Spruce Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 2nd Ward Council member. I'm going to go along with sort of everybody. My house was built in 1969. I'm the older part of town. My house is on a cement slab. I have an 8 by 10 foot basement, which contains my furnace, water heater, and water softener. I have no storage whatsoever. I've got 3 vehicles. If anybody wants to buy a Mustang, I can go down to 2. But my storage is an older home. It's a storage problem. So I know in the Stokes, John and Luann, good friends of mine, they did it the right way. They applied for it. They went through the whole process trying to do it the right way. And they're in the same boat, same age as I am. And a storage shed for me would be a tremendous benefit. Snow blower, lawnmower, wheelbarrow, all the stuff I need to maintain my property. I could move out of my garage and give me room for storage for all my winter stuff. And if anybody has a wife like I do, you move all your summer stuff and it goes into storage, and then you got winter and she changes it around. Now you don't have the area to store that stuff. So there's only the 2 of us. Our nest is empty, but still, we got to be very careful what we buy and where we store. And I would just love to have a small storage shed. And I did ask for a storage shed and was told I could not have it. So I complied with the city, and I do not have a storage shed. I also want to note that if you look around and drive around our community, the amount of storage sheds that are already up, that no permits were asked, nobody asked anybody. They just went out to Menards or Home Depot or wherever and bought one and put it up. And our staff can't be running around checking everybody's property every day. So we have them all over the city already. So what are we going to do? We're going to take each individual property that has a storage shed and see if they're in violation or not. I think our citizens, and I'm going to back up what the other council members said, I'd like to do as much as I can for our citizens to do what they want on their property, as long as they're not creating a hazard to others, to their neighbors, a bad, deteriorate the neighborhood or wherever. If they want to use their property and get a small storage shed to put their stuff in, I really, as a council member, I want to support our citizens and enable them to do that. And we're stuck with the 20% rule, which I agree with what Ron's saying. I don't see that as a big fire hazard. If we change this ordinance so we can adopt a small structure to be used for storage purposes, outline it in that factor, and if you want, what it's made of or whatever. But in the example is the Stokes. I was here for that whole process. They got the approval of the entire neighborhood, all the neighbors around them. Most people, if they would have put up the shed and not said a word, nobody would have known about it. But they wanted it to do it the right way, and they got penalized for doing it the right way. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Craig said he has all kinds of stuff he wants to talk about now. You're on.
I'm gonna try to contain myself a little bit.
Thank you.
Assessing ordinances based on the date that they're introduced, I dismiss that out of hand. Absolutely dismiss it out of hand. That doesn't make them irrelevant today just because you think that they were constructed too early. Our whole Constitution was constructed a long time ago. Let's throw it out. You know, hey, I want a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit too. So change that. Okay? What we've heard from staff is we have an ordinance in place that is fair in comparison to other communities. As a matter of fact, it may be generous compared to some. But yet, it appears to me, because somebody didn't get what they want, people have chosen to make an issue out of it. Now, I'm a property rights advocate too, but I don't see this coming up all the time where people are terribly upset because they can't have whatever they want in their backyard for accessory structures. If we're going to go that direction, then I think you should just go anything goes. Let them do whatever they want. If you're really a property rights advocate, then let them do whatever they want. But this falling back to, gee, anything that's 50 years old has no useful purpose anymore, I think puts a lot of us at risk in this room.
Okay, somebody down, Skip?
Again, I'll say that I think that if this needs to be done so people can put in structures, everybody should be treated the same. In other words, if you allow your backyard to be filled with a storage structure because you have a tiny backyard and it fills up the whole yard, well, everybody should be allowed to fill up their backyard because that's their property. And so we should either do away with the ordinance that restricts these things, or we should leave the ordinance alone, one or the other. I don't see the modification. I think we're getting into this thing of the city being big brother and saying who can do what and all this sort of thing. So I would advocate doing away with the ordinance if that's what everybody wants.
Steve?
Well, I think what I've heard from some of the comments being made from the floor was that the 20% restriction has a larger benefit for large property owners and has a certain amount of constraint on small property owners, and that's where potentially this could be coming in with a minimum of at least maybe modifying the ordinance to where it at least allows a property owner to be guaranteed to have a small storage shed, even if it exceeds the 20%. That's kind of where I think I might be hearing here. Small property, not everybody is of the same means. A small property owner should still be able to have the ability to store lawnmowers to whatever. So.
Okay. Oh, Paul, I'm sorry.
As I read through our ordinance, I came away with the impression that it was pretty generous in what it allowed, and in some cases overly generous when you look at some lots and see the size of structure that would be allowed under the 20% rule. I came away from a reading of it thinking we should have a maximum. 20% is okay, but we should have a maximum. And I guess I'm unclear what's being proposed here by Alderman Benash. I missed something, but were you proposing something significant or something specific?
Well, it was just something that was brought up, and I know we would like to have a shed in our backyard as well, but I thought this would be something for discussion to see what the commission here thought, or the committee, and if it was something to be moved forward to the council or public hearing, fine. If not, fine. Specifically, what I was looking at is a possible amendment to the ordinance which would allow to have a prefabricated mobile shed in the backyard not to exceed certain specifications. And that's the direction I was going.
Are we talking about allowing this in addition to the 20% that's already allowed?
Correct. So I don't want to change the 20% rule. I'm just saying an addendum or something, amendment to the ordinance to allow for a shed.
But we are changing the 20%.
We would be.
We would be changing it. We'd be raising it to, I don't know what, but some number greater than 20%. And I've heard a lot comments about the prefabricated sheds as if they're superior to a constructed garage/storage building, and at least aesthetically they're not to me. They're, in some instances, I've seen an eyesore, and I realize that's my personal viewpoint of them, but I'm not sure what we accomplish by saying, yeah, you can have your 20% and you can have one more shed that is no greater than 10 by 10 and has to be made of plastic and whatever. Where is the hardship that the 20% is creating? That's what I'm not seeing.
If it's a small property, I think and potentially an older structure, I have lived in some of them myself where you have next to zero storage in your basement, for instance, so now your garage becomes your storage, you park your car in the driveway. I mean, I've lived that. But I do not interpret that this has to be an extension of the 20%. I guess the way I was interpreting it is, if we're going to consider this, is it would be a minimum. You would be allowed to have a storage shed of a set size or less, plus additional structures not to exceed 20%. So I have a 1 acre property. I could put a heck of a storage shed out there according to this new ordinance, but there are other people who might not have that. And their 20% means no shed, but they could fit one on their property. Let them have.
Well, even if you have an extremely small lot, let's say you've got a 50-foot lot, 50-foot wide lot with a 30-foot deep backyard, that's 1,500 feet. That still allows you a 300-foot accessory structure. Now, I can see, is a one-car garage. Okay. A one-car garage already takes up your one accessory structure.
If you have a detached garage, it's considered an accessory structure. So I think a lot of what you find with the problem with the 20% rule is either typically a detached garage that ends up being considered part of an accessory structure that they're parking their vehicle in, and then they don't have the storage capabilities, where if it was attached to their home, it would never count, so then they'd have the full 20%.
If a garage is attached, it doesn't count. If it's detached, it does.
So yeah.
Maybe that's a way to look at it, that something can be allowed in addition to a certain garage size. Or maybe a detached garage shouldn't be classed as an accessory structure. Why? Fundamentally, I don't see why one would be and one would not be, if the purpose of both of them is to store your 1 or 2 cars. So, okay, I see where the problem can potentially exist if you've already used your one accessory structure. But I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, so I've come over to where you're saying it would actually be the 20% plus one is what you're, yeah.
Well, I'm saying a garage plus
a small storage.
Something.
Some dimension to be determined, whatever, yeah.
You know, I hear so many references made to smaller properties, smaller homes where they don't have the room. When those were purchased, it occurs to me that perhaps space wasn't the motivating factor? Personal
People's lives
responsibility?
change. They have more children. There's all kinds of things that change in life.
I understand that, but it happens on all kinds of properties.
Mhm.
I'm not sure the city can take responsibility for alleviating everybody's challenges as they arise. I think that's going down a pretty dangerous road.
So am I hearing that the...
I'm uncomfortable suggesting any change based on one person's situation. If there is any appetite for changing the ordinance, maybe it ought to be a little more thoughtful process than a reaction to someone who didn't get approved what they wanted.
So am I hearing that you don't want to pass this, you don't want to pass on with a recommendation, you don't want to do anything with it? Is that what I'm hearing?
You know, I wouldn't be opposed to staff studying this, and if they see a recommendation that can be made, that's fine. But as far as just out of hand changing it.
So do you want to send it back to staff? Is that what we're saying?
That would be my preference. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction to sit here tonight and say, okay, we're going to suggest this change, which is really based on one instance that's come up.
Okay.
So that would be my...
Well, again, this was just for discussion.
Yeah,
I mean,
got it.
I didn't mean to anything to be approved.
It says discussion and consideration.
Right. Well, we are considering
Yes.
are we going to do it? What are we going to do not? But the other thing is, I don't want to say this is a knee-jerk reaction. As you heard from Bob and you've heard from other people, there are people who will apply for these and they'll be denied. So yes, this person was denied, and it was an idea that if there's one, there's others. And I thought this would be a good idea to discuss it and get a whole bunch of ideas and debate on the issue, and that's why we're here.
I have little sympathy on this because I lived in an area for 25 years where no structures were allowed. And this was in a quarter-acre lot.
But you would have bought it knowing that.
Yeah, I bought it knowing that because that's the way it was. If I wanted to live there, I had to figure out how to do things. So, Steve?
Yeah, so I think staffing it is the right way to go. With all this discussion we've had, I never once dreamed we were going to go to some type of a solution or recommend a solution tonight. But I do think that there is potential to relook it and see, is there a need out there, and if so, how can it be addressed?
I will take this to the planning staff then and for study, okay? And we will bring back something to the Plan Commission. Yes.
As part of that, I'd like some thought given to a maximum as well, because I think that's really ripe for abuse.
Okay.
Given some of the lot sizes we have.
Okay.
I think staff needs to understand, too, that no change is an option.
Correct.
No.
Agreed. Yeah.
Eric?
For staff's clarity's sake, I know we'll be discussing this later on, but if I could have some input as to what kind of directions you'd like staff to review, including no change, I've understood that one, looking at a maximum or possibly eliminating garages, but we could look at 1,000 different ways at this issue. Just what would be useful for this commission to hear back from in particular directions?
I think you and I can work this out. Okay. So we'll move on to item 10. To consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. In this case, development agreement or lease arrangement between the City of Onalaska and Skogenheim LLC regarding the proposed parking lot at 110 Irvin Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, tax parcel number 18-28-0. I need a motion.
Motion to go into closed session.
Okay.
Second?
Motion made by Craig, seconded by Jim Panache to go into closed session. Roll call.
Mayor Joe Chilson?
Aye.
Jared Holter?
Aye.
Jan Brock?
Aye.
Paul Gleason? Aye. Knut Timpty?
Aye.
Craig Breitsparker?
Aye.
Stephen Knott?
Aye.
We missed Jim.
Aye.
Jim Nash.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. I'm sorry.
Don't